it's time to delve hard again. And in memory of the Pope, God rest his soul, I thought it would be nice to play a priest. Shadow Priest though, so not sure if that counts, but whatever. So normally I'm more of a discipline enjoyer. Like, I absolutely love discipline. But do I love it enough to play it in tier 11s with a gear disadvantage and have to rely on Bran? No. Also, not having an interrupt in delves is actually psychotic. So this was tough. At first. I'm already not a huge priest player, let alone shadow, and I admit I struggled when I tried to apply my trusty old kiting tricks. Because priest kind of sucks at kiting, let's face it. I went Void Weaver. Oh, that is weird. My Death Knight is called Void Reaver. I went Void Weaver for the extra burst ball, but you should honestly just play a spec that you are comfortable with. Whether it's complicated or simple, whether you're new or experienced, I'm sure you'll figure it out. It doesn't matter, just do damage. Our damage output is not going to be the deciding factor whether we are going to beat these delves. Trust me. And like I said, this was tough at first. And I struggled. But halfway through my first delve, I realized something. Priests have a very unique ability. And this ability will blow this whole thing wide open. That ability is Dominate Mind. Yes. Not only can we just pretend to be a hunter or a warlock and have a pet tank for us, but we actually get to choose our pet. We're basically gonna play Pokemon. And our choices for pet are pretty insane. As always, because we are a DPS spec, we are using Healer Bran. And yes, I'm using the Pacifist rig again. Though if you prefer something else, that is fine. Pacifist rig has a pretty unique interaction with priests. And that is if you have a controlled unit via Dominate Mind, the Pacifist rig won't actually pick you up. It will still be summoned, but it'll just stand there blasting fire. And it still deals a lot of damage. Because of the game's mechanics, when it spawns, for the first second it will face you. So you can kind of aim it, because it tries to pick you up and then fail. So you can still kind of aim it, and then just, keep the mobs in the fire. And it still deals tons of damage. But yeah, do whatever you want. It's completely up to you. It will be fine even if you take other curios. As long as you use Healer Bran. Never change that. Alright, let's talk about the priest's abilities. Now, your kiting tools are non-existent. Priests have certain slows, or Mind Control Crit, Archon, Halo has a slow, Void Weaver Ball can have a slow, but I don't use it. I'd rather use the movement speed thingy. But I admit I have been a little dumb, because for as long as I can remember, I've used Mind Spike. I've always preferred the regular casting over a channel for a spell like this. That may not be very smart, because Mind Flay has a 50% movement speed thing, which could actually be huge for kiting in single target. My bad. Entirely my bad that I forgot about that. Maybe you should use it. It will be very useful for a single target. But that is if you have to kite. You may not have to kite because of Dominant Mind. As a Shadow Priest, you also have an interrupt/silence, and you have a single target stun. Note that if I said as a Shadow Priest, the other specs do not have this. Yes, insanely enough, they are the only two specs in the game that do not have an interrupt. Aside from that, you have an AoE Fear to disable your enemies with. And as far as I know, that's it. Oh, I guess Holy has a stun if you really want to go Holy. But yeah. For survival, the rule is we don't want just trickling heals. We don't want passive trickles of heal. We want bursts of healing, because in delves, or we don't take damage at all, or we take a lot of damage at a time. If we have to tank some melee hits, we are gonna need burst healing. But if we are kiting well, or we have a pet, we're not gonna need healing at all unless a spell is being cast on us. So Flash Heal improved, very good. Don't bother with Powered Shield or anything like it. The same goes for Vampiric Embrace. We want that. We do not want the passive Leech. We want to choose when we need healing. Which makes Desperate Desperate Player, no, that's me. That makes Desperate Prayer also a very good ability here. I have another survival trick for you, and this is especially good if you do not like Bran Bronzebeard. And that is that you can void shift him, because he technically sort of counts as a player. If you're noticing that you're dying and you're like, screw that dwarf, you can just swap health bars with him, easy. For movement and kiting, if it's needed. For me, feathers were more than enough. And I also use a macro that plants a feather directly at my feet immediately, so it's basically a tiny little sprint. But you shouldn't really need this. Your biggest defensive is Dispersion, which gives you a whopping 75% reduced damage taken. And it will also heal you. This is huge. Priests can dispel diseases, but we don't bother with those in Delves. The only disease I can think of is the Abomination in Takrethon, but you can just completely dodge that, so that should never even happen. Priests can also purge enemies with Dispel magic, which is good, we should take that. And they can also do it again with Mass Dispel. And Mass Dispel actually removes all magic effects from you, and that can be huge, especially for like the Underpin's explosive allies. If you have to engage those and you see the buff happen on you, you can just yeet it off of you, you know? Priests are one of the few DPS classes that can remove magic debuffs. Power Infusion is awesome. If you don't have a mind control pet, you should use it on Bran. If you have a mind control pet, you should try to use it on your mind control pet, and it will go absolutely ham. It doesn't work on all mind control targets though. Like the shark from Sinkhole can't be power infused, but a lot of other mobs can. I don't know what the factor is here, whether it's a humanoid maybe, I do not know. But if you have a big bad mind control pet, you should use it on that. Speaking about mind control, or dominate mind I should say, there is a trick to this, and that is you choose the biggest, baddest unit you can find and you just dominate mind. It will surprise you the amount of units that are susceptible to this. Once you have a unit, what I like to do is I focus that unit, so once the timer runs out for the mind control, I can immediately cast dominate mind on it again. This will be even faster if you are also a mouse overcast enjoyer. Once you have a mind control pet, you should have it attack units, and once you know it has attacked the enemies, you should press Fade. Fade will drop all your threat, and assuming your mind control pet has gotten a hit in or two, the enemies will just attack your pet. And there you go, you now have a personal tank. Let's also not forget about Mind Soothe. If there are certain skips you want to make, it's always worth mind soothing the mobs just to make sure. And if you're really good at the game, I'm sure you can predict exactly when you need it and not, but it's always worth trying. And now, without further ado, let's get to the gaming. I started in Fungal Folly. The story was Oversparked Operations, a story in which the Delves' enemies are replaced with goblins, and the final boss will be Maulspike, a simple yet dangerous tank and spank fight. You may notice that this delve is not bountiful. That's because I saw a lot of people struggle with Maulspike, so when I saw that it was up, I decided to go for it and see for myself. So my first Pokemon was this doggo. Not exactly a big scary elite, but it works. I still had to kite a bit, as random mind-controlled mobs tend not to have a taunt. And I hadn't learned to utilize Fade just yet. And yes, another friend immediately showed up, the Pacifist rig. And now you'll clearly see what I meant with it being stationary when you have a unit under mind control. Look at it just standing there menacingly. Ah, never mind. I really don't know why it decides to just run off sometimes. Must be haunted. I also tried to fight a little normally without a mind control pet. Whereas a Frost Mage is a kite monster and Warlock has a tank pet, Priest really struggles with this, so you really should try to use Dominate Mind. I did get some nicely timed Void Tendrils in. That reminds me, I forgot about Void Tendrils during the intro. Void Tendrils is an ability that roots nearby enemies. And these routes are tight. Don't count on enemies getting out of these before they despawn. It's really good for escaping melees. Anyway, my next Pokemon was a punchy thug. Remember that your controlled mob retains its abilities. Look at her punching away. Later in the delve, I decided to just go petless against Underpin's well-connected friend. I did not fully realize the potential damage that pets deal just yet here, so I just single target nuked and rotated disrupts, as usual. There's the stun. And there's the fear. And now I'm all out. We have to take some extra adds. And there's the root. Now I just gotta kill him as fast as I can before I get overwhelmed with adds. If there's like 5 adds up, even a tank may get killed by these. Now here I saw a juicy one. A mob without abilities, but with a good melee attack passive. Remember to always keep an eye on the Dominate Mind timer on your pet. When it runs out, you should be quick to put it back under your control. And for your information, this was my first delve as a priest. And I'm still very ineffective with things. When I do things more properly in the next delves, you can really tell the difference on how much easier it becomes. I did not notice at the time, but the pet is dealing more damage than I am. And here I got a little too comfortable. Not only did I stand in the Hovering Menace's charge, but my pet timer was about to run out at the same time. That was a close one. I nearly went there. And then it was time for the boss, Maulspike. Maulspike went very smooth for me, even with me tanking most of the fight, because I didn't think of using Fate just yet. I'm not entirely sure why people struggled with this one. I can just dot down the adds and do some passive cleave, and just nuke the guy. Maulspike really doesn't have any abilities aside summoning 2 hyenas, and sometimes it doesn't enrage, but that's about it. You should be able to just nuke this guy down and, do some passive cleave to take care of the adds. Though I do admit I'm doing more damage than I should be doing because of my pet. But that only shortens the fight. It doesn't make a difference for my survival. And there you go. Next was the Spiral Weave. As a ranged, we love mobs with huge cast times. It gives us plenty time to just run out of range. Even if you are without a pet, you should still do fine if you just don't pull too much. And then I immediately started pulling too much. Nothing really interesting happened in the rest of this delve, so I'm just skipping to the boss. I had the Underpin's biggest fan with me. Yeah, that's how I found out you can actually dominate mind on elites, and even on some of the Underpin mobs. To kite this boss, Overseer Cascal, it's best to just go in circles around the room and not just stand in the middle. The reason for this is that the location where the adds are summoned makes a difference with how easy they are to kite. If you go in circles, they will more quickly clump together instead of scattering and coming at you from all sides. This boss's other two abilities are just dodge brown stuff. Next up, I did Earthcrawl Mines, and here is where I feel I actually started being effective. Note how I have my pet focused, so when the mind control runs out, I can just quickly cast it again via the focus frame. So now I send in my pet ahead of me. This is optional, but better. Now, these are the Underpin's explosive allies. They are, in my opinion, the most dangerous mobs in Delves, just entirely. Their debuff hurts so much, and it's magic, so most classes can't remove it. I, as a priest, can, but only once with Mass Dispel. If you can't, I think it's good to just kite them or waste time until they hop on their little crab mounds and start exploding stuff, which is also very dangerous, but at least that can be avoided. The boss here was Web General Ab-Inar, which is one of 3 bosses in Earthcrawl Mines. The other 2, one of them is a Dark Iron Dwarf that I have not yet properly encountered, and the other one is the biggest bug, which shares abilities with this Web General man. He only has 3 abilities. One is the very obvious minecart that I shouldn't need to explain, and the other are just, both of them are curses he puts on you. Now, as a Shadow Priest, I can't remove curses, but I can interrupt one of them and pray that Bran maybe dispels the other, and otherwise I'll just have to survive it. Which should be fine, because I will have my pet tank for me, which saves me a lot of damage taken. And here again, my mind control is about to run out. I cast it again via the focus frame, have it attack the boss like at least once, and I use Fade to drop my threat. And now it will just be tanking again. I did a Dread Pit run as well, and here I used the Adoring Fan again as a pet. And this one is just fun, honestly. The AoE selfie stun works on enemies as well. But do note that not all pet abilities actually work, because a lot of them are programmed to damage only players. Yeah, Blizzard tends not to keep these things in mind when they create content. I did find myself a new Pokemon, the Nerubian Lord, who I assumed would be immune. Now this is what you want. A big bad pet with a nasty melee attack. Because this is where I found out you can actually use power infusion on your pet. And here again, timer is about to run out, but we're prepared. We recast Dominate Mind via the focus frame, and then we let it attack and use Fade to drop threat. Sadly, it can still be a little bit buggy. This Nerubian Lord mob snaps back to his spawn if he is too far from it, so I had to fight the boss normally. Luckily, the Underlord here is easy to kite. Just dodge the Spike Cone, dodge the Fixate, and pop a defensive for the Swarm. That's when I kinda realized that I'd only been doing Nerubian delves, so for good measure, I also did a Sinkhole. Just like I did with the Shaman, I used Levitate to decide where I start. When you are on top of the delve here, you really have to be careful not to look down. I will say this every time I do this, because it's very easy to just peep down and immediately fall, and potentially even end up in the abyss. Look, that's the boss back there. We could technically just drop in on the boss and start there. I'm not going to though, because I still need to fight the Underpin. I saw the Elite Shock down there and I was like, hey, I want that. So I decided to drop down near the rest stone, close to where it patrols. I had to wait a bit for it to come around again, so I secured a rest stone in the meantime. And there it is. Sadly, the shark can't be power infused. Not entirely sure why. Maybe because it's not a humanoid? Another example of why you really need to use Fade to drop threat. Look how much damage I'm taking from just being attacked normally. In this specific story, you can actually jump up very high with your extra action ability. And if you target upwards while you are levitating, you can just get back up to the water surface. And yeah, I realize that this strategy is absolutely bonkers. I mean, delving in general just allows for some really crazy trickery, which is why I love it so much. Like, have you ever seen something like this before, in actual content? I guess it was about time for boss, but before I went for that, I decided to summon the Underpin with a wave scrambler. I still needed my weekly bounty after all. And remember, in water delves, you can't kick the bombs. Just survive and pump. And your pet pumps too. And no, before you ask, you can't mind control the Underpin. Alright, the boss. Crag Pie. He does a poison attack that you can't do anything about. Bran can. On a minute cooldown he can remove poisons, but I suggest you still interrupt that. His swiftness buff can be purged by your Dispel Magic ability. There we go. Easy as pie. Now I just finished the objective and backtrack a little. But yeah, we basically skipped half the delve by going on top of the water. It's worth trying on other classes too with a water walking potion. I also did an Excavation Site 9 as well, for good measure. But I don't want to bore you with that because it's honestly just more of the same. Just practice and get used to Dominate Mind. Just focus your pet, make it attack first if you can, then drop threat with Fade and use power infusion on it if you can. Here I took like one of the huge giants, and I did not expect it to be susceptible to mind control. Look at him just stomping on the explosive allies. And here again, power infusion on the pet. This boss became a complete joke, if he wasn't one already, that is. Yes, I actually missed the only interrupt there was in this fight, and I ate a curse because of it. I nearly died here. I faded out of panic, and then my pet's mind control ran out, so I couldn't drop aggro again, so I just had to tank damage. Luckily I did have some emergency measures to rely on. And remember, you can right click your pet in the window and then click dismiss to end the mind control early. And there you go, we have delved hard and done 6 tier 11 delves on a priest with the item level of 620. It's really not difficult and you don't have to do a perfect rotation, just try to practice the Dominate Mind thing. And don't forget to believe in yourself. Later on, when you get more geared, you probably won't even need a Dominate Mind pet, though it's always good to have one. If there's any questions or suggestions, feel free to hit me up. I think the next class will be Death Knight. Yeah, I think I'll take it easy for once. Until then, happy delving.